Turn that damn trooper!
Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. This is Inside.
And welcome into Inside Arkansas Live on this somewhat gloomy, surprisingly cool August Monday here in the natural state. Curtis Wilkerson and Andrew Ellis here with you today as John is out after not taking my advice on the radioactive shrimp at Walmart. As our friend Austin has already mentioned in the chat, just kidding. He's playing golf, but it's for a good cause. You guys have heard us talk about the Ronald McDonald Monday here on Inside Arkansas, and there is a lot to react to. Packed show, important show, because it's officially game week for Arkansas football. We have an official depth chart from the U of A. We have heard from Sam Pittman as he talked about all of it. We're getting into all of that. We'll talk a little Arkansas basketball, get into the chat, do a vibe check presented by Basis Health. We'll talk about the best and worst of the weekend and more. But first, Andrew, good to see you, my friend. How was the weekend? And, how you doing here on this first day of game week against Alabama A&M?
The weekend was good. It was a nice little small appetizer for college football season, but now it's a little bit different. It's Monday. It's game week. The vibe is different. And, all year long we talk and we talk and we talk. That's what we do for a living. But now we're here where it's like really easy to do the talking and getting excited because there's actually a game in front of us. We don't have to sell everyone on like, oh, hey, you should be excited. It's game week. We're already excited. And so it's not hard to come to work today, even though it's not hard to come to work any day because, again, we talk about sports for a living. But I'm excited to talk about this depth chart, man. I was telling you right before we went live, I'm like, we almost have too much to get to, which is rare.
Yeah, no kidding, no doubt about it. I see some people say that, okay, the audio cleared up a little bit. Good. I appreciate that. Sometimes when we're talking to each other, I don't know what my voice comes in like. Sometimes we're cracked. Audio is a little weird. If it happens again, let me know. But someone said that it's cleared up now, and we're going to go with that, I hope. So.
Okay, good. You didn't sound weird to me, but I don't know.
Maybe people were saying it's better now. Okay, all right. Sorry. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Let's see. What do we go with? Can we just pull up this depth chart and start rolling with it? Because we got that. We always wait. Man, it says we're still having some audio issues here.
I wonder if that's StreamYard or if it's us.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what's going on.
Listen, this is John leaves for 5 minutes to go play some golf, and all of a sudden we're just off the rails entirely. But I can't tell how serious it is because obviously I have the worst internet of all time, so I don't know if I'm the right person to ask.
Gotcha. Yeah, some people were saying
we're getting mixed reports. We're getting very mixed reports.
Yeah, I know. This is weird. Yeah, apparently there's a little bit of back and forth here. Some people are saying we sound okay. I say we just roll with it.
I say we roll with it, and if we sound bad, it's your fault. It's not our fault.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, depth chart. Let's get into it. I'm going to pull it up here, Andrew, because this was fascinating to see. The over under on the oars on the depth chart that we had. I think somebody said it at like 3.5 or something.
The over went easily.
It was 8. Okay. It was 8. So we definitely went over on that. I think we just start at the top and work our way through here because there was a bunch going on. And, we'll just see how we feel about it all. Let's start at wide receiver. Andrew, what stood out to you from that standpoint?
Well, so I think Jaylen Brown being in the starting group was a little bit surprising. It's not the most stunning thing. I thought if they were going to, because we talked about Raylan Sharp he missed about 2 weeks worth of action. And so he was kind of in and out of practice. He comes back and we expect him to be one of the top guys and they expect him to play. I think we called that and we thought that, yes, TJ Brown's going to be starting there in the slot. We just thought it'd be Monte Harrison starting at that other outside spot, but they like Jaylen Brown. We've heard good things about him in camp. But I think the one thing to remember with wide receiver is all of these guys really are going to play. We always say, hey, don't believe the rotation stuff when it comes to O-line or, maybe some other positions, but at wide receiver, they really are going to play 5 or 6 guys. And so I think we kind of knew who was in that hierarchy. I just don't know if I necessarily saw it exactly looking like this, but I'm excited to see all those starting 3 guys, but also Monte Harrison and Raylan Sharp seem like they're going to be pretty safe bets to get some work there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. What do we go with? We went with Omega Blake, CJ Brown on the outside and Raylan Sharp at slot when me and you did it, right?
Yes.
And we said at the time, like there's a world where CJ Brown could be in the slot, especially with Raylan Sharp's injury. And it sounds like that's kind of the reason he went there. I was pretty fascinated to hear Sam Pittman say he feels like that CJ Brown has maybe been the most consistent of the receivers throughout the course of camp, and that the slot might be his best position. That's something that I thought was pretty interesting there. Jaylen Brown thing, it sounds like Arkansas has just got a need for speed out there on the outside. We probably should have taken some more cues from Bobby Petrino, because every time he's been in front of the microphone, I feel like throughout camp, he has unprompted mentioned Jaylen Brown and talked about speed with him.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's another thing we also heard about CJ Brown. At one point, I think someone floated around the idea that he had the top sprint speed on the team at wide receivers. Like, that's a big deal. Obviously, Omega Blake led the country in yards per reception. I started thinking about it. I was like, man, they've really upgraded their overall team speed at wide receiver. But then you think about it, Tyrone Broden, that was supposed to be like the only thing that he had bringing to the table. Isaac Tesla, obviously, I don't remember what his 40 time ended up being, but he obviously had a good amount of speed. And you had Isaiah Satania, who was a track guy who also had some good top end speed. So they had a lot of it last year. I'm interested to see how they're gonna how some of these guys actually produce on the field. I imagine this weekend, though, in this matchup, especially against an Alabama A&M team that's going to be cover zero and blitzing a lot, it seems like we're going to see a lot of that speed early on. So don't be surprised if they sling it around for like 500 yards on Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Let's listen to a clip real quick here from Sam Pittman. He mentioned the wide receivers, what he's looking at there, and then what he sees specifically from our man Jaylen Brown.
You could certainly put Monte Harrison in there as well. In my opinion, he's really had a good fall camp. Just because of the plays that they've made, the consistency that those guys have made, and more probably as important as anything, the speed of Jaylen Brown. We want to get it on the field as fast as we possibly can, but we do believe that there's more than those three. But CJ probably was the most consistent guy that we had. Him and Monte, they were probably the most consistent guys we had, and Raylan, with him being out and being hurt, that would have something to do with that as well.
Well, there you have it. What about the Courtney Crutchfield angle of this, Andrew? I guess here's my thought process on this, because, coming into it, it felt like, and I've said this before, okay, Omega Blake, Courtney Crutchfield, those guys probably need to be really, really good for Arkansas to have a really good wide receiver room. And then we got through the spring, weren't so sure about what was going on there. And then they go out into the portal in the spring window. They get Jaylen Brown and Andy Jean. Both of those guys are already there on the two deep. One of them starting, and one of them's in competition with Courtney Crutchfield, who we didn't hear much about throughout the course of camp. And we know now that Antonio Jordan, who's not on this depth chart, has a high ankle sprain. I don't know how that impacts things here. But are you surprised to see Courtney Crutchfield on here? Are you pleased to see him on here? What do you make of it?
I guess I'm not like stunned. Like, he's been running with the threes and occasionally would be in there with the twos. And so it's like, you knew who he was kind of in the ballpark of maybe being on the depth chart. I'm surprised that there's an or with him and Andy Jean, like meaning that Courtney Crutchfield, you could talk yourself into being a number 2 wide receiver. I just think that there's a good chance that neither of those guys really wind up being in the top group of guys that are really rotating. Because again, we use that number 5 or 6. And really, if you think about it, like, it's a lot of years where it's really 3 and 4. I do believe that 5 and 6 number is going to be accurate, but it's like teams just don't routinely play 7 wide receivers in equal amount of snaps. And so you really start doing the math here. And Omega Blake, CJ Brown, Jaylen Brown, of course, you assume those guys are going to be in that number. Raylan Sharp certainly could be in there. Monte Harrison seems like he will be in there. I'm not convinced there's going to be many more, if at all, than those 5 guys that I just listed that are really going to get snaps. And I think Cam Shanks, who actually has some production in his career, would probably be a safer bet, over Andy Jean or Courtney Crutchfield. So I'm kind of intrigued by the or, but then at the same time, I'm also like, does it really matter if it's an or for a position that's probably not going to see the field anyway?
Yeah, I agree. I kind of think I follow the same sentiment here. By the way, folks, I mean, we see everything that you guys are putting in the chat here about, a potential situation at the U of A. We're live streaming right now. Like, I don't know. We don't know what's going on. I mean, if we see anything verified or whatever, we'll certainly get to it here. But as it stands right now, I mean, we can't confirm or deny anything that's going on over there. I'm not sure Appreciate everybody for bringing it into our attention. Hopefully this is not the case and everybody's, safe and sound over there on campus. But if we learn more, we'll get to it. As of right now, we don't know. We're live here talking about the Razorbacks.
Yeah, the chat has us in a blender today. Like, because there's a point, because when the audio thing was happening, our immediate thing is always kind of like, oh dang, are they messing with this? Like, is our audio really bad? And then as soon as the audio thing gets cleared up, all of a sudden it's like, hey, there's an active shooter on campus, and it's like, I did not know what was going on. But yeah, like Curtis said, like we don't have information on that, and I mean, we're not trying to dismiss it, but it's like I don't know what to tell you at this very moment with this situation.
Yeah. So hopefully, hopefully everything's okay there. Thoughts, prayers to everything that may or may not be going on, but we're going to continue on with the show and we'll see what else happens here. Okay. Moving on to the offensive line next, Andrew. Is this a Marion Harris's world that we're all just living in? Because it sounds like this man is potentially in play at every single position aside from center.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because you could look at this and you could say, because Marion Harris is a guy that, when we did our depth chart on Thursday, we had him kind of penciled in there as or kind of sharpied in as the right tackle. We were never really buying that it was a real competition between him and Shaq McCroy. We were like, I don't know, it seems like they like Marion a lot more than they like Shaq, so it's not really a competition. What we, I guess, maybe missed here is that there's still a competition somewhere. It's just not involving a Marion Harris, although you see him listed at every spot and you see a bunch of oars next to his name. It seems like a Marion Harris is going to play no matter what, whether that's at right guard, right tackle, or left tackle. And perhaps the competition is between the two redshirt freshmen, Kobe Branham and Shaq McCroy, who are like, again, not even really competing for the same spot, but they're going to play 5. And it seems like a Marion Harris is a guy that, based on just everything we've heard this fall, seems like he's kind of emerged as a guy they really trust. I mean, you trust a guy a lot if you're going to play him at 3 different spots, one of which being on the complete opposite side of the offensive line. He's a redshirt junior. He's a little bit older. He also started for you last year, and I know it didn't go well, but it does, like, I think I saw this, and at first I was like, damn, maybe I was wrong about a Marion Harris being a for sure starter. But the more I really think about it, I think even with all the oars there, I'm even more confident now that they're going to be starting a Marion Harris regardless.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe bet. I would imagine it's going to wind up turning out about like we thought it would, across the offensive line with Marion Harris over at right tackle and Kobe at right guard and everything else kind of as expected. But it sounds like, and we said, hey, they're not going to play 9 offensive linemen, even if you see all these guys on the depth chart, that a Marion Harris might be the ultimate rover here for the Razorbacks. And outside of that, there's a couple freshmen that they seem to be pretty high on there as well. So, the left tackle thing, here's what I'll say. Maybe I'm a little bit surprised that the answer at left tackle, if something happened to Corey Robinson, wouldn't just be Fernando Carmona, who was, I think, pretty successful over there at that position last season. What do you think about that? I mean, is there anything to that, or?
I thought I don't like in theory, like it really isn't that crazy of like, oh yeah, we need to have a, left tackle is a very important position. You need to have a guy ready. But I did think it was weird that like on game week, Sam Pittman's like, hey, we need to start getting Marion Harris some reps over there at left tackle. Cause it's like, again, he's your backup at right guard and right tackle. I thought it was interesting, but I don't know. I think that the plan is, of course, Corey Robinson just needs to stay healthy. I mean, you brought him in here to be that guy. Of course, you don't want to have to go to a plan B, but I could very much buy that a Marion Harris would be that guy, especially just because, Carmona could play there, of course, but I think they would probably – a Marion Harris is the guy they're going to use to avoid having to move anyone else around. So it doesn't become musical chairs. We're just going to make this one guy be the musical chair. And so I kind of am okay with the premise. I just hope for a Marion Harris's sake that he's able to just get enough reps at whatever spot he's going to end up at, and so he's not put in a bad situation here.
Any surprise that Mike Washington is the clear starter over Braylon Russell at running back?
No. And I understand why. I mean, we were talking about this, I guess that would have been last Thursday, where I think it was Heartbroken Hog who was like, I still expect Braylon Russell to be the leading rusher. And not to say that Braylon Russell couldn't still lead the team in rushing. Hell, I think all 4 of those guys listed on the depth chart are going to get carries. But just I think if anyone was surprised by this, they just haven't realized that, like, this is a real thing. And we're not saying Mike Washington's going to be the Heisman winner, but the team definitely views him as their go-to guy. And, it's still going to be a split to some extent, but I don't think it's going to be even as 50-50 as some people think.
Yeah, I tend to believe the same thing there. I'm going to be super fascinated to see it, and we won't necessarily see it against Alabama A&M. They'll probably both get a ton of carries, but as we get through 3 weeks, 4 weeks, what that distribution of touches looks like in the running back room for sure. Anything else there on the offense that is of note? I mean, respect to our man Maddox Laster. There is no controversy at fullback. He's the man. Somebody said it's crazy that he's only listed at one spot on the depth chart when he's the Swiss Army knife of this football team. But, you see that the tight end thing, I think, is exactly how we kind of thought it would be there, with Rohan Jones being your clear starter. And then, we'll see between between Andreas Poski and Jaden Platt.
Yeah, I guess I just thought it was interesting that they split up the tight end. And obviously, you got your H and your Y or whatever. Like, I'm cool with that. And, we see that all the time. When teams run two tight end formations, it's not always guys on the line. I just thought that was interesting, like an interesting way for them to be like, oh, yeah, these are all three are starting guys. But I guess nothing stunning on the hierarchy there. I guess the only thing with wide receiver, Jacaden Ferguson, we haven't really talked about much at all. Interesting that he's on the depth chart. Antonio Jordan, not on the depth chart, although Sam Pittman did reveal today that he is doubtful for the game Saturday. I can't remember if that was the exact term he used, but he was basically like, Antonio Jordan's really banged up. We're not 100% sure he's going to play on Saturday, which, may explain his absence from all of these wide receiver conversations lately.
Yeah, for sure. I think doubtful was the phrase that he used there on Jordan. So Interesting enough. Okay, well, we'll move on to the defensive side of the ball. Before we do that, got to tell you about our friends over at Walter Christmas Lighting of Arkansas. We're getting closer to the holiday season. I know what you're thinking. Christmas lights in August. People decorate for Halloween too, and we're getting very, very close here. A lot of you love the idea of getting in the holiday spirit, but you don't have the resources or the time really to light up your house and wow the neighborhood. Luckily for you, Walter Christmas Lighting has you covered this fall and winter. If you're in Northwest Arkansas or in the River Valley, hit them up, and they take care of everything when it comes to getting you ready for the holiday season. All materials provided, any color, any pattern. They install the lights, they provide the maintenance, and then they do the takedowns in January. If you sign up for Halloween lights, you will also get your Christmas lights for 50% off. That's a pretty good deal if you're the decorating type. Just text our guy Brett for a free estimate at 479-459-1380 today. You can also check out their website at walterchristmaslighting.com or like them on Facebook by scanning the QR code right there on your screen. Okay, moving on to the defensive side of things here. Where do we start? The defensive line, maybe? Andrew, what say you?
Is that a controversial topic these days?
People were talking.
So a few things jump out, and I got to be honest, none of it's great. One, were you surprised Justice Boone and Phillip Lee? We're looking at an or there. Justice Boone was a guy that early in camp we were like, it seemed like he was kind of the guy on the defensive line that they really liked and was bringing that pass rush threat. And it took a while before we even heard Phillip Lee's name. We've now heard some good things. I guess I just did not expect the or to be there. And what does that say about Quincy Rhodes? Maybe Quincy Rhodes really is just this quiet assassin that's been killing over there, and we just had no idea about that. I thought that was interesting, but I think the big headline here at defensive line is, and we called this on Thursday, Keyshawn Blackstock is at second team on the depth chart at defensive tackle, which I think some people are going to be surprised by, and I've seen on Twitter, a lot of people are surprised by. We kind of told you this was going to happen. Like they were, and Sam Pittman even said it as much at the press conference today. We didn't bring him over there to just, be on the depth chart. We brought him in there to play. And I think that's interesting, but it also kind of speaks to the situation we've got here.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that completely. Sam Pittman obviously talked plenty about Keyshawn Blackstock and that move and some of the things you just mentioned. Let's listen to what he had to say.
In practice,
I think it was about 6 days ago. Now, we had talked about it a little bit simply because of the depth there at D-line. Now, we're very, very happy with the young freshmen that we have in there. Kevin Otis comes up, Reginald Vaughn. Those guys can play. We're very, very happy with those guys. But to get a veteran, older guy, and he played it in high school as well, Keyshawn was the guy that I went to first and asked him if he could, if he'd be interested in, because, he wasn't starting on the offensive line, and it wouldn't affect the offense as much as at all, actually, for right now. And we needed him to play when David got hurt. And he's done a good job over there. Now he's only practiced 3 times over there, but we have this week to get him ready as well. And I think he'll be ready. He's wanted to do it. He said anything for the team. And so when I talked to him, he was outstanding in that part, but I also think he knew, and we know that he has opportunity to go help us on that D line.
Well, we're going to see just how much he does help Arkansas, because like Sam Pittman said, he's going to play here early on. David Oakey's already been ruled out for game 1 there. We'll see how long that winds up being. If it's, I guess it depends on exactly what his injury is. Maybe it's just a week or 2. Maybe it's a little bit longer. Either way, and he said a little bit later on, like depth, yes, it is a concern there at defensive tackle for Arkansas. And I guess the question is not if Keyshawn Blackstock is going to play for him, but just how much and if he can make an impact at all.
Yeah, and I think, Blackstock, of course, he's got a lot of experience. He's a senior, but of course doesn't have defensive line experience there. I think that's the thing when I look at this depth chart that just stuns me. It's not stunning because, again, we knew this was the case, but you just look over there, Charlie Collins, true sophomore, not a ton of snaps. You look at the Frank kid, the Frank transfer. Again, we haven't heard anything really about him in fall camp. Kevin Otis, true freshman there at defensive tackle. If it's not going to be Keyshawn Blackstock, it's got to be him, a true freshman. And then you've got Kavion Henderson, who didn't play at all for Arkansas last year. That's just a lot of guys that are in that radius right there. Probably, if in an ideal situation, would be guys that could give you 15 to 20 snaps every week, and none of them have played at all. And it's just, I think maybe just seeing it all on paper is just kind of crazy there. But again, Blackstock, it's not a matter of like if he's going to play. They have no choice. Like, he has to play in this stretch without David Oakey. And then to the point you've made before, like when David Oakey does get healthy, let's say that's week 2, week 3, are you really going to be able to count on him for like 30, 40 snaps on the defensive line in the SEC when it's already kind of been a question already if he could even, he's coming over from the FCS level. Is he really going to be ready to play? I think that's a very real question. And I think maybe now that it's game week and Sam Pittman has said it is a concern, people will believe that, maybe it's not great on the defensive line. Yeah,
no kidding. Anything to Ian Giffard being over Danny Saili there for the second spot? Are you surprised that there's not an or? Because it's interesting. We've heard a lot about Danny Saili, and I think it's because of the body transformation that he's made, losing all the weight, looks like a better player. And you still got, Ian Giffard's still a big old boy. We just haven't heard that much about him. And so all fall camp, I was kind of wondering, well, this probably means one of two things. Either he's not doing much to be talked about, or he's just kind of steady Eddie and they know what they have there. It sounds like it might be the latter.
Yeah, I think not seeing the or is, I guess, I definitely wouldn't have been like, if I had seen an or, I'd have been like, that tracks. I think there's definitely something to the idea that they view them pretty similarly. And when Sam Pittman was talking about defensive tackles that he trusts, he listed Cam Ball, Ian Giffard, and Danny Saili, and kind of all in the same sentence. And so, again, that doesn't mean they're the same level of production as Cam Ball, but they're all going to play there. They're all going to have to play a ton of snaps. I guess the assumption here is that both of those guys are going to rotate a good amount. You might play 80 snaps on the defensive line. I think Cam Ball there's probably a bigger gap between him and Keyshawn Blackstock, at least I would think. And so they're going to need all these guys. And so I guess it really doesn't matter. But yeah, I could have seen a case for an or there. And hell, early in camp, it seemed like Danny Saili had taken a little legitimate jump forward. And so, hey, maybe Ian Giffard and him and Quincy Rhodes both. Again, we haven't talked about him a ton, but maybe they really are going to take those massive steps forward. You just don't find out about it in fall camp, which, to be fair, I would much rather find out about it in game action.
Yeah, you and me both, brother. No doubt about it. Linebacker, there's a lot of them. You know what I mean? I don't think any big surprises there by what's going on. We knew that Xavier Story and Steven Dix were going to be your assumed starters there. Sounds encouraging on Xavier Story. I know Sam Pittman said, and by the way, I guess we can just give the little injury update here now. Xavier Story, they expect to practice today, and they're hopeful that he'll be able to play on Saturday. David Oakey is out for sure. Raylan Sharp was back at practice late last week, and they expect to have him back. Antonio Jordan has a high ankle sprain, and he's doubtful. Am I missing anybody else from that?
I don't believe so.
I think that was it. So at any rate, you've got your starters there. I just, depth, like it's the exact opposite of what you have there on the defensive line at defensive tackle. Bradley Shaw is a guy who's going to play for them. I think Trent Whalen is a guy who is going to play for them. And then you could have conversations about Andrew Harris and maybe Tavian Wallace getting involved there. They've got a lot of options. And I think the point is this is going to be a Razorback defense. It's going to have to show a bunch of different formations, a bunch of different looks out there, maybe to kind of mask or disguise some of those deficiencies in the middle on the defensive line. And so you're going to see some 3 linebacker looks. They're going to do what they can to get the strength of their defense on the field, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think this is interesting. And again, like you mentioned, there's a lot of them. On a depth chart, there are no rules. You can list one player at a position if you want. Don't believe me? Look at fullback. They have one player listed there. Like, you can list as many players as you want. And I think it's very telling that they listed basically 8 linebackers. Maybe I miscounted that. Is it actually 7?
Maybe it's 7. There's
Maybe
a lot.
It's 7. Okay. Who's to say? I mean, who can really tell if it's 7
Shout out
or
to
8?
Wyatt Simmons for being on the list. All right.
Nobody can do the math quick enough, Curtis. We'll never know the answer. But yes, shout out to Wyatt Simmons, who gets an or next to Andrew Harris, a linebacker from UCF that we've heard good things about. But again, I think it's very telling that they listed that many players at the linebacker spots. And again, they could have done something where, maybe you do a 3 linebacker set and you just have 2 at every spot. Like, they could have done different things here. But I think they plan on playing a lot of these guys. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they listed all these guys on the depth chart. I kind of view the entire depth chart as like, hey, these are the guys that like we kind of expect to play. And so the fact that there are so many names there at linebacker that they feel good about, whereas you look at some positions and it's like they're struggling to list 2 guys, I think it's very telling. And so it's linebackers. Again, it's a position that we really don't dive into as in-depth as we do some other positions on this show, but it's just because there's not much to discuss. You got a bunch of ballers and you got 2 guys at the top of that depth chart that we have 0 questions about other than Xavier Sorey, of course, coming back from injury. But I'm excited to see how that looks this week, because week 1 against Alabama A&M, you would imagine they're going to have plenty of opportunities to play as many of those guys they want. And so what does year 2 Bradley Shaw look like? I remember him playing well in that UAPB game last year. What does Andrew Harris look like? What does Trent Whalen look like? We haven't seen those guys in action yet. And so I'm excited to learn a little bit more about this group when we see them this weekend.
Yeah, me too. Moving on to the secondary here, Andrew. Let's get safety out of the way first, and then we'll spend a little bit more time, I guess, on the corners. Larry Worth, yeah, sure. We knew that was going to be the case. Good to see Quintavious Scandrett there on the 2 deep. I wonder how many snaps he's going to get. He was one that honestly we haven't heard a whole lot about during camp, but I was excited about him when Arkansas got him out of the transfer portal. Now, on the other side, I get it, but maybe I'm a little bit surprised that we have an or there between Miguel Mitchell and Caleb Wooden. And I know they really like both of those guys, and I know they're both going to play. I just kind of had the vibe that, Caleb Wooden being Miguel Mitchell being the returner. He's like the coach on the field, all these things they said about him. I just kind of expected him to have that locked up.
Yeah, well, that's been the thing all along with nickel in these 2 safety spots. You basically have 5 guys there, Jordan Young, Scandrett, Worth, Mitchell, and Wooden. And I'm like, all right, that's 5 guys for 3 spots. How's that going to go? Curtis, I wouldn't have been surprised if they had done an or at both spots, honestly. Like, if Scandrett and Worth, if there had been an or between those guys, we wouldn't have had a debate at all. We would have just been like, yeah, that makes sense. Worth is pretty much a returning starter, and Scandrett has started 3 years the Division I level, been very consistent in that time. Like, of course, both those guys are going to play, and you don't want to pick between them. Cool. The fact that they did that with Mitchell and Wooden and then didn't do it with Scandrett and Worth, like, I don't know if I'm reading too much into that, but like that's interesting to me. But I do think Arkansas's got some quality options there at safety, and so I think they're all probably going to play. And will they run some 3 safety looks? Will they get creative? I think I kind of like the depth that Arkansas has there at secondary. But you're right on Scandrett, man. It is kind of weird that we haven't heard a ton about him. But again, it could be this whole situation like Quincy Rhodes or Ian Gerfard, where he's just steady Eddie, and you know what you have with him, and so they don't feel the need to hype him up or say anything crazy about him. But I don't know. Did we learn anything about the safety group with the way this depth chart was revealed?
I don't think so. No, I don't really think so.
Like, they're probably going to play all 4 of those guys the same amount, even though there's an or next to one and not an or next to the other, right?
Yeah, I would imagine that's going to wind up being the case. I'm really excited to see what Jordan Young brings to the table. A guy that he was another one that they got out of that portal class that I was really excited about, and he missed the spring with an injury. I think it's I think it has the potential to be a pretty solid group. And it sounds like they've got a decent amount of depth there. Now, the flip side in the secondary is corner. And we've talked a lot about this, and, maybe who's separating, who's not, who's going to take hold of these positions. Are they going to run it back with guys from last year? What's really going on over here? I think we pretty much knew that Kenai Walker, the Oklahoma transfer, had one of these spots locked down. And it seemed like things were trending towards Jaheim Singletary, who Sam Pittman said that he was happy with, that they're high on. But how about Julian Neal getting the nod over at the other corner position? I thought that we were going to have oars at both of these. And it turns out we had 8 oars in other places in the depth chart.
Yeah, how about that, man? And honestly, like it's a slight surprise. There's not a ton of again, real surprises here of oh man, we did not see this coming at all. Like even Jaylen Brown made sense in our brains, but I would list Julian Neal starting over Jaheim Singletary a little bit of a surprise. Now we talked about it on Thursday, and we basically said you have Kenai Walker and Jaheim Singletary, 2 guys who have lost their jobs in the SEC and been, basically replaced by younger players. So it's kind of set up going into fall camp where if you're a coaching staff at Arkansas, you're kind of hoping some of those younger players or some other transfers come in and really take those jobs and solidify it. And I think part of the disappointment we shared with the cornerbacks on Thursday was the fact that none of those guys had. Turns out Julian Neal, the Fresno State / Stanford transfer, who we heard some good things about early in camp, has kind of taken one of those other spots. So, hey, I think that's a win there. Jaheim Singletary was the single worst graded cornerback in the SEC last year. Selman Bridges is a young guy that everybody loves, and everybody's kind of waiting to see what he can do here. He has, we'll see where he ends up on the depth chart. Currently behind Kenai Walker, or actually, he's over there listed with Julian Neal, which I thought was interesting. You have Jaheim Singletary listed behind Kenai Walker. Can they switch that? Will that always be the case? I don't know, but I did think that was interesting because I feel like Selman Bridges is a guy that if you're this Arkansas coaching staff, you probably want him to emerge and be a guy that you can really count on as a starting corner. I don't know which spot is more attainable, though.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. It sounds, coming into this, they had 5 guys competing for a couple spots here. I wonder how many snaps these guys are going to get to play, what the rotation is going to look like there. Sam Pittman talked a little bit about that, and I guess he kind of laid out his pecking order behind his 2 presumed starters. Let's listen to what he had to say about that first.
They're big, and they were probably they were the most consistent guys. Actually, Kenai and Julian are, we think, really, really good corners and have size. Again, probably just the most consistent guys. Jaheim, we're very, very positive about Jaheim Singletary as well. And then you go probably to Villa and would be the next, along with Selman Bridges. But those 2 guys were the best 2 corners that we had throughout fall.
Well, Sam Pittman thinks that those 2 guys are both very, very good corners, really, really good corners, as he said. I hope that winds up being the case for Arkansas. I truly do, because they've got to be upgraded there. Now they're going to be bigger. They're probably going to be more physical. Can they cover? Can they do their job? We'll see. I will say it's interesting to me, and we heard some rumblings, behind the scenes that maybe not the best camp in the world for Selman Bridges, and that's wild because in spring they were kind of anointing him as one of the starters at corner. It seems like they very much wanted to make that happen. And I think coming into fall camp, there was a concerted effort to continue with that. And from the sounds of it there from Sam Pittman, he might be at the bottom of the totem pole here after all.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. And I mean, again, this is someone that didn't play at all last year. I think he maybe have gotten snaps in one of those games, but I mean, was not on the travel roster, was not on the, 2 deep, was not really pushing for a spot. So maybe it isn't super stunning, but you're right. Like throughout the offseason, and I think a lot of the fans, again, it's easy to talk yourself into anything as a sports fan. And I think for fans, it would have been easier to see a young guy in Selman Bridges, someone that, by the way, Arkansas had to convince to come out of the portal and, got him back from there. But it seemed like that was a guy that it's very easy to kind of buy into. Hell, even Keyshawn Davila, who's the number 1 JUCO corner, I don't know if he was a guy that was guaranteed to start or every fan was dying, but had he won a starting job over one of these guys that has been in the SEC and maybe shown what they can be, maybe has a little bit lower ceiling, I think fans would have probably been excited about that. So I don't know if this is a little bit of a bummer or not, the way it played out. I will say Kenai Walker has had some success in the SEC. His grades went down across the board last year, but the year before as a sophomore was a serviceable SEC corner. So it's not like you're starting some random guy with no experience or anything. He's got a lot of snaps. And Julian Neal has played at the Division I level, had some success. Like, this isn't a completely dire situation. But when I look and compare it to last year, a group that everyone was unanimously not happy with, I just look at this group and I'm like, is it really that different? Is Marquise Robinson that much different than Kenai Walker? Is Danico Slaughter that much different than Julian Neal? You know what I mean? Like, is there really a massive upgrade at the position group? Probably not, which I think is if you told fans that 3 months ago, I don't think they would have believed you.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. We probably won't learn much of anything in week 1. We might learn a little bit in week 2, but then after that, we'll get it figured out with the secondary pretty quick, just about what they're capable of doing this year or not.
Yeah, that's going to be the key for all these young guys at all these positions, whether it's D-line, wide receiver, running back, secondary, or even linebacker. Like, you're going to have opportunities here, especially this week, to get on the field and play and kind of make your claim. And then you have another week against Arkansas State where maybe the coaches can test that theory. That's a good time. Really show out in the Alabama A&M game. All right, now let's give you 10 to 12 snaps here in this Arkansas State game. And if you perform well, hey, all of a sudden we're going to Ole Miss. We might have you in the rotation right there. There's a little bit of a time for someone like Selman Bridges to kind of ramp up to an actual role in playing in time. And so we'll see what these guys do with their opportunities the next 2 weeks. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. I didn't have the special teams portion of the depth chart clipped out for this particular exercise. No surprises there, though. I've got it pulled up on my other screen here. Scott Starzik's your kicker. That's your field goal kicker. That's not a surprise. We expected that to happen. I think Sam Pittman said, first of all, they had a good mock game on Friday, but that he made all of his kicks. Good to hear. I don't know if the chancellor was there or not, but he made his kicks there in the stadium. Devin Bell, the punter, Captain Devin Bell. We'll talk about that in a minute. Blake Ford's doing the kickoffs. Ashton Noe still your long snapper. Devin Bell will be holding as well on the field goals. Rodney Hill, kickoff return. Cam Shanks, punt return with Raylan Sharp backing him up there. Any thoughts at all on special teams? It is a third of the game after all.
Shout out to Markeelan Bratton, freshman running back, who's the backup kick returner. I thought that was notable. I'm excited to see Rodney Hill house some kicks, but no, Cam Shanks and Devin Bale are the kings of this group. I feel like they've got to set the tone for everyone else. I'm cautiously optimistic about what Scott Starzik can bring to the table as a place kicker at the University of Arkansas. Excited to watch the era begin, but no, I don't have any crazy thoughts on special teams. It's about what we expected.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to sum it up there. Well, let's get into the chat, but before we do, got to tell you about our friends over at Basis Health. They're changing the way that healthcare is delivered with those mobile medical services. Instead of driving across town, going to a waiting room, setting a Medicare, IV hydration, and more, check them out today at www.basishealth.org or scan that QR code right there in the bottom of your screen. Okay, let's get into the, we're seeing everybody's chats here and everything about the situation over there at the U of A right now. It's scary. It's terrifying. And man, just stay safe, be safe if you're in the Fayetteville area, particularly if you're on campus. We thoughts, prayers, all those things, but we don't have a whole lot of information there in terms of exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I know it's like a tough spot to be in. And again, I'm learning a lot from the chat. I mean, obviously people are texting and everyone's kind of learning about this the same way. We're just not in a position to reveal or talk about the situation. We're kind of in the same boat as the rest of you guys. But what we have learned, Curtis, is that something is weird with our ads.
Yeah, it seems like every time we pull up one of the ads that the video gets choppy.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
We're just gonna have to read them from the paper. Like
we're just gonna read them old school. Listen with your ears. You're not gonna see it with your eyes. I think we've identified the issue here today. So because it seems like every time we pull one of those up, it's like, oh man, it's cracked. It's bad again. It's like, all right, so we're just not gonna do any more of that. Fair. We'll read them out loud to you. I got a banger for you for Hickey and Hull here in a minute. So okay, let's get into these chats. Appreciate everybody. It's kind of a wild day with everything going on there. And again, just, be safe, be smart, and stay alert and all those things. Crazy situation. Let's see. Heartbroken Hog here. He says, Curtis and Ellis called the hell out of the depth chart. How good did we do? Have you gone and evaluated that just yet?
I haven't, but I was just thinking about it. So, like, in terms of things that we listed on ours that are not the same on the actual depth chart, we had Monty Harrison instead of Jaylen Brown, which again, well, I guess we can take our L there, but at the same time, both those guys are going to play a good bit. Like, I feel okay about that. And then we did not have Julian Neal. We had Jaheim Singletary, because that was kind of the thing we kept hearing, was that Jaheim Singletary was, him and Kaniah Walker were those starting corners. I guess I'm happy to be wrong about that one, but pretty much everything else, including Keyshawn Blackstock on the 2 deep, we nailed. We didn't put oars on our depth chart because we really said it with our chest, but I feel like we still got it right, though.
Yeah.
And we also, by the way, we had Marion Harris listed at multiple positions on our depth chart. That's a real thing. You can go look at that.
I feel good about that, actually. No, we did a pretty decent job there. Appreciate Heartbroken Hog for, patting us on the back when we need it a little bit, and also for tuning in, tapping into that stream last week. It was a good time. Dylan Henson, he says, Caleb Holt visiting Arkansas this weekend. Curtis, yeah, I know. Retweeted that a little bit earlier. I saw Joe Tipton put out the report. That's good. That's a big deal there for Arkansas. Caleb Holt, for those who are wondering, 5-star, top 5-ish level guard in the 2026 class. He's a player now. He's really good. Just kind of dominated the Adidas 3SSB circuit. I will say, even with this visit, and that's this weekend, I'm going to be anxious to hear the feedback and the tenor afterwards, because as of right now, Arkansas would probably be running 4th behind 3 other SEC schools. Alabama guy. And so Bama and Auburn have a lot of momentum there. Kentucky is a school that's made a really, really hard push for him. All 3 of those schools have visits scheduled with him for a little bit later on. So it does kind of give you the feel that Arkansas has got some ground to make up here. How do you do that? You get them on campus for a visit. You show them around. You take them down to the football game where the Razorbacks beat Alabama A&M by 70. And then you take it from there. So, yeah, that's a notable development for sure. I'm glad that you put that in there. Glad we got to talk about it. And I would say tune into the Pod at the Palace, because we're probably going to be talking about it a lot more tomorrow morning.
Are you a little bit disappointed? Were you hoping that if they were going to bring him on, it would have been for a cooler football game, or do you think Alabama A&M will be enough?
It'll be enough.
There's not many home football games in the first month or so of the season.
There's not, and that's the crazy thing about this, is because now with this one scheduled, Arkansas will have 5 visits over the course of the next 6 weekends, and most of them aren't for football games. Like, you got Tay Kenny coming in for the Notre Dame game. Now you got Caleb Holt coming in for this particular game, but like Big Arafanjian, the big 7-footer, he's coming in on a non-football weekend. Jordan Smith Jr., the number 2 prospect in the class, non-football weekend. Cole Kloer, I don't remember, is it a bye week? It might be during the bye week. I think that he's coming the first weekend of October. So is what it is. It's used to, typically you would love having basketball recruits come in for football weekends and everything, because you just get a feel for the atmosphere and all that. This is also John Calipari, man. And he's pretty good at closing the deal when he gets kids on visits, and he was doing it at Kentucky, where I don't know that people necessarily cared about the football games there. And then he was doing it at Memphis, where I don't know that was a big selling point when he was having kids on campus. But it would have been cool if they could have just got all these guys in for Notre Dame or something. That was the Musselman way. It seems like Cal's kind of strategically getting all these scheduled to where, all right, this is your weekend. Now you go away. Then this is your weekend. And kind of rolling out the red carpet specifically instead of bringing all these guys in at once. I'm okay with it. Cletus, our man, he says Crutchfield turned out not to be as good as what we thought he was when he was being recruited as a freshman.
I would say this is a fair assessment, considering and by the way, like the clarification of when he was being recruited. Well, when he was being recruited, he was viewed as one of the best wide receivers in the country. So it's not like that hard for him to underachieve from those circumstances. But I do think that we're now at a point, and again, he's still very young. What is he, a redshirt freshman or maybe a redshirt sophomore?
You redshirt freshman. Yeah.
Redshirt freshman. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, he's very young. If he turns out to be a good player, like, it wouldn't be the most, wild turn of events of all time. But I definitely think we're at a point where I think Hog fans have realized they needed to temper their expectations, which we talked about, by the way. Let's file this under the category of football takes of ours that have aged well. We sometimes people get angry when we say things, and then 6 months later we turn out to be right and everyone kind of agrees, but nobody ever goes back and says, hey, I'm sorry for yelling at you when you said Courtney Crutchfield might not be wide receiver 2.
You're 100% right, man. Oh, goodness gracious. Trey says at least we have permanent captains this year.
Okay.
I think we have the clip of that. I'm scared to play it.
Don't play it, Curtis, because I don't want to ruin the show. I want to talk about this though, because this is baffling to me. And I'm not I want to make it clear. I'm not mad. I'm not upset about it. I don't think this matters. I don't think it's going to affect the football team one bit, because I know when I do this bit, people are going to be like, wow, y'all will dog on Sam Pittman for anything. I'm not dogging. I think this is hilarious. I'm getting a lot of entertainment out of this. So everyone remembers they did the rotating captains last year, and it was a huge controversy, and people hated it and all this. They asked Pittman, are you going to do the same thing? Like, what's going on? And he said, we're going to have permanent captains. We have voted on it already, and we're going to have another vote this week. And then there's probably going to be some more that join them, but we will have permanent captains. And then he didn't say anything. And then he just moved on. And then the next question was about like O-line or whatever, and he just moved on. Later, someone asked him for the permanent captains. Do you have that list?
Yes, I do. It is Xavier Sorey, Cam Ball, Taylon Green, Carmona, and Devin Bell.
Which, by the way, I think you can only send 4 to the thing, right?
That's right.
What it is? Yeah. And so, even if you have those permanent captains, you're going to have to do the rotating thing, which they've done before. So not nothing stunning there. But he also adds that they're going to add to that. So I don't know what the adding to that's going to look like, but it seems like they're going to continue to have votes for this thing.
Yeah, interesting. Who do you think is going to get the final vote? What's your pick?
I mean, I don't know, man. I think Mike Washington he's in the top 10 to 12 of captain candidates because of the tone he set in the weight room. He won a lot of those battles in the weight room. I think he's got a good chance. Let's say we got Ball and Sorey for the defense. I could see one of those safety guys, whether that be Mitchell or Worth, I think could be team captain type guys.
Yeah, I could see that. Larry Worth seems like I think maybe the next best candidate for the defensive side of the football there. Yeah, I would say him or Mike Washington would make a ton of sense there. I was going to say, because I know they like Corey Robinson quite a bit, but there's a good one. Yeah.
Pawpaw Harrison Monte. Yeah, I think he's 47 years old. I mean, he's had 3 grandchildren. He's got a lot of life experience, but he's only a sophomore in these halls.
That's right. That's 100% right.
He's got to learn from Omega Blake.
Yeah. Come on, young man.
By the way, hold on. I've seen multiple people like mad that the punter is a captain. Y'all know they do offense, defense, and special teams, and the NFL does that as well. So like every NFL team has either a punter or a kicker as a captain or whatever. I don't like. Again, I think it's none of this matters. They just did offense, defense, special teams. And of the special teams guy, is either him or Cam Shanks, basically. They went with Devin Bale. This is not a thing. It's not a reflection of how the coaching staff feels about the football team that they chose a punter for the special teams captain. It does not mean that the O-line sucks or the D-line sucks, which, by the way, we've told you the D-line does suck, but this does not mean the D-line sucks.
Yeah.
Like you can say the team's going to suck and whatever, and, maybe you're right, but it's not going to be because they have a punter as captain. I promise you.
Yeah, and Sam Pittman spoke to that too, where he said he wanted to wait until the scrimmages and wait until the mock game there because he wanted everybody to be able to see the special teams guys in action and make their determination based off that. And that's what they did. And Devin Bell got it. And he might be an All-American punter. You never know. Put some respect on that man's name. Do you agree with David's assessment here that Harris is the most important guy on the offensive line right now?
I will agree with that. One, because anyone goes down, he's going to go move to that spot. So he could become the most important guy really quickly if he's not already. But I also think if you think about this O-line from a big picture standpoint, Curtis, we all kind of assume those 2 guys on the left are going to be good. So they need to be good. Cool. The center, seems to be average, above average, whatever. Right guard is a question mark. Right tackle is a question mark. So already, even before the positional versatility, Amarian Harris was a very important piece on this offensive line, because if you clear up that situation at right tackle or right guard, wherever he ends up, all of a sudden that's one less position for you to have to worry about. And so I'm okay with there being a battle between redshirt freshmen at one spot if you guarantee me the other 4 spots are competent. Which Amarian Harris is kind of the one guy that could make that become a reality. So I think when you add that plus the positional versatility and the fact that he might be your backup at 3 spots, I think that's a fair assessment to say he's the most important guy on the offensive line.
I would agree. The ultimate utility play. He's like the Brendan Donovan of offensive linemen there. Good for him. Just put him anywhere. He's a plug and play, man. Let's see. Heartbroken Hog says, if this team fails to make a bowl, the D-line is most likely to be responsible. Hard to disagree with that, because like if you're looking for a reason why the season might not go well or you would have issues or whatever, you would look at the biggest red flag on the team, and I think it's pretty clearly what we're looking at right here with the defensive line.
Yeah, I'd say they're definitely most likely. I guess the only case you could make is one position group being way worse than they're supposed to be and sucks. That would be. But I think D-line, if you're looking at things that could be an issue, it's by far the most likely for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe they've got a little bit more there at defensive end than we were thinking. Because I'm choosing to take the optimistic route here. Like we talked just a bit about, well, it's Justice Boone or Phillip Lee. And, well, we heard so many great things about Boone that maybe Phillip Lee really is coming on super strong, and they feel good about both of them to the point where they'll play both. Now, I know they're kind of different players, because what's Phillip Lee giving up, like 30, 35 pounds or something to Boone there? So he might be, even though I know Sam Pittman said, hey, he's better in the, in run defense than we thought he was going to be. He'll probably be a pass rush specialist for the most part, I would imagine.
By the way, is that an issue for you? It's not for me. I'll just tell you right now. Obviously, cool. Yeah, we want as many defensive linemen that can have as many skill sets as possible. But hell, I remember a young lad by the name of Dietrich Wise Jr. He was at Arkansas, and for like 4 years, his senior year, he finally became like an every down guy. But for several years, he was a third down only pass rush specialist. He racked up a ton of sacks for the Arkansas Razorbacks, kept doing it in the NFL. He's still in the NFL, played about 10 years now, just because he has that one skill set. He can get to the quarterback on a 3rd and 9. I'm okay if Arkansas can have one guy that proves without a shadow of a doubt he can do that. And Phillip Lee, by the way, did have 5 sacks last year. That's the most on the entire roster at any level, for everybody. If he's just a 3rd and 8 pass rush guy, that's more than than a proven pass rush that they have right now. I mean, Quincy Rhodes, who we love, has 1 career sack. So it's like, if even if Phillip Lee turns out to be a one-trick pony, I'm cool if that one trick is sacking quarterbacks.
Yeah, no doubt. I think this is a pretty good point here that Walmart McKenna brings up. He says on the defensive side, there are 9 bolded names that are senior or redshirt senior. Love that age. This is an older team. That's one of the things Sam Pittman mentioned in terms of like, why do you like this team? Why do you feel good about them? And we know that they're bigger. He says that they are faster than I guess maybe they anticipate him to be based on what he's seen there in camp. And yeah, they're older. And I think that does show on the defensive side of the ball. Now we can talk about continuity and, new pieces and systems and everything like that. And, the kind of the turnover on the roster of so many guys out and then so many new guys in. But they do have a lot of guys who have played a lot of football. And so I think we can definitely give them credit for that. And I actually liked what Sam Pittman said. Now, this was more related. I think he was talking about offensive line when he mentioned this, but he was like, yeah, we got some transfers from, up front last year, but they didn't play a whole lot of ball where they were the year before. These guys have, and I think he's talking specifically about a guy like a Corey Robinson, as opposed to Shaq McCrory, obviously. Right. But there's some truth to that. I mean, it's like they brought over Addison Nichols, who wound up taking over the starting center position, and he was fine. Like he had his moments where he was very frustrating, had his moments where he was pretty good, but he didn't play very much at Tennessee. So I think the combination of not just age and having older players, but also having experienced guys who've been out there in the wars before is it's certainly something that can't be overlooked.
For sure. And I mean, Curtis, think about every spot that you would be concerned about on this Razorback roster. it would be, so even right guard, right tackle. Okay, you're gonna have a redshirt freshman there, but there's gonna be a redshirt junior right next to him. There's gonna be a redshirt junior center right next to him. There's gonna be 2 seniors on the left side that are kind of there to guide the young guy. Defensive line, you have Cam Ball, Justice Boone, Phillip Lee there to kind of guide these younger guys, and not to mention right behind them on the formation, 2 senior linebackers barking out orders, telling them where to get lined up. Hey, we're doing this, we're doing that. On the back end, you've got corners, which, the starting corners for Arkansas are actually 2 seniors that have played a lot of football at a high Division I level. So maybe you're not as worried about them. Underneath them are some freshmen that they can kind of guide. And then if those freshmen get on the field at corner, you've got 2 senior safeties right there ready to yell bark orders, and then 2 senior safeties behind those senior safeties. So even though Arkansas does have a lot of, positions to worry about and some red flags, and I'm not trying to dismiss it, there are red flags, you do have people around them that can kind of maybe make up for it and maybe help kind of advance some of that development. Plus, when you have the leadership of Keyshawn Blackstock coming over to defensive tackle, I mean, it's just going to elevate the entire room, right?
Yeah, I mean, naturally, obviously that would be the case. And the move with Blackstock made sense given your situation. It just doesn't make sense that you had to be in that situation. I think is the best way that I can explain it there with him. But I like the things I've heard in terms of how that whole process went down. I mean, Sam Pittman was pretty transparent from the standpoint of, hey, in fact, he outright said this wouldn't impact our offense at all. I think that tells you that he very much was not in the picture there for a starting spot on the offensive line. And we know how they feel about Amarian Harris taking over all the backup spots there. So I like that Sam Pittman went to him first to see what he thought about it. I don't know that Sam would ever say anything otherwise, but according to him, that Blackstock said, hey, yeah, I'll do it. Whatever I can do to help the team want to play. Those are the things that you want to hear in these situations. It's become something, I don't know, but I just, as we reacted to it, I know a lot of people were like, oh man, like just give them a break. You guys are looking for something to complain. No, it has nothing to do with Blackstock necessarily. It's just that Arkansas shouldn't have been in this situation with their depth, but I don't think it was a stupid move, and I don't think it was a bad move. It was kind of a necessary evil. I don't know that there's a better option there that they could have gone to.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good assessment. That it's like we have no issue with the move. The move makes sense. I think that would help, and so I can buy all of that. I can buy that. It makes sense. It helps your depth on the defensive line. It's an area of need, and they feel like they have the pieces on the O line to where they can afford that. All of that, like 1,000% makes sense. The fact that they're doing it, though, right, like you said, is just kind of it's almost an admission of guilt a little bit. And I think there's even a way to look at this as a fan and say, you know what, this could be the best thing for Blackstock, him individually. It could be the best thing for the team. It could be the best for the position group, all of that. And it could actually help Arkansas on the field. But to act like it's going to completely change, to now think I am no longer worried about the defensive line because they did this, I think that's a step like a million steps too far. And so I think there's a way to look at this and be kind of optimistic and be like, you know what, this could work, this could help, and all that is 100% true, but it still speaks to an issue that I think people need to kind of come to terms with.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that 100% there. Do you want to touch on this from Heartbroken Hog? Selman did it the right way, Bridges.
This is a great pull from Heartbroken Hog here.
Forgot all about this.
Because Sam Pittman said, if you're gonna enter the portal, I can't enter the portal and Jamie still marry me. So if you enter the portal, you're out of here. But then I can't remember who was the original did it the right way guy. Was it Malik Hornsby?
Must have been. Yeah, must have been.
It was that offseason. It was someone, I can't remember if it was him specifically. I don't know, but he was like, yeah, he did it the right way. That's why we let him come back. Which, by the way, I don't have a problem with Sam changing his policy. It's a new world. If a guy enters the portal, if you still think he can help you, by all means, go get him in. I think they're happy they got Selman Bridges back, but that is funny.
Did Braylon Russell do it the right way?
I'm sure he did. That's why he's RB2 on the depth chart.
Were they the only two that entered and then came back from this past cycle? I think that might be the case.
Yeah, I don't know. Was there maybe any other O linemen that maybe entered?
To be honest with you, I was surprised that Blackstock never did.
Yeah,
Like if we were still in the Hog Sports days, I definitely would have been in the camp of let's get the Blackstock story written in advance, just because we're probably going to have to run it.
I think Blackstock, and by the way, these kids, everything corrects at some point. I think there's a lot of players in college football who realize, because the portal just seems like an attractive idea of the grass is going to be greener over there. But I think a lot of people, like if you're at a school and you don't play, if you're assuming that there's just going to be a long line of people that are willing to give you that opportunity, the people who get picked up in the portal immediately are the people that played at their previous school, whether that be a low level. If you're at a low level and you played, you can probably get to a high level. If you're at a mid major and you want to get to a high major, well, if you played, you can probably get there. If you don't play and enter the portal, who was that receiver? Bryce Stevens. You remember he entered the portal after not playing and then was like stunned that nobody was lining up to get him. It's like, dude, if you're not playing, I don't know how teams are supposed to, really, like it's honestly, you can get on the radar way more at a low school by just simply playing. And so it's like, I think there's a lot of guys who realize maybe it wouldn't be that great of an idea to go in the portal. And I think maybe Blackstock did that math and was like, yeah, I don't think it's going to be like a huge move for my career if I enter.
Right. Yeah. No, I think you're right there. Interesting thought here from Evan Baker. He says, do you think having a talented linebacker group will make up for the questionable defensive line? It's better than having a non-talented linebacker group.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. If you change the term makeup, and if you said if it will help ease the concerns for the questionable D line, yes. Will it make up for it? I think that's probably a little bit of a stretch. I think they're definitely going to help, and I think they'll do some things schematically that'll help. But I don't know if that's like a thing you really want to have to do. And so I think it'll help, but I don't think it's going to overcompensate for it.
Right. Yeah. That's I think that's kind of where I'm at there. It allows them to be a little bit more flexible with some of the things that they do. I mean, they're probably more comfortable putting an extra linebacker on the field and maybe going with just with 3 defensive linemen and everything like that until they've got to get a little bit healthier with David Oki or whatever. It gives them options to work with, and so from that standpoint, sure. But yeah, I'm with you. It's still an issue for the Razorbacks. Hickory Hog says, yeah, I think you summed it up. You probably said better what I was trying to get out of my mouth. He says moving Blackstock was a good move for our situation, but being in that situation is not great. I would agree with that for sure. And then Heartbroken Hog says, it's just the world we live in now. I just hope they get it down to one transfer window soon. Yeah, I think I'm all for that. The one transfer window thing, the spring portal window. And I know Sam Pittman talks about this a lot, and a lot of the SEC coaches do. They're not fans of it, man, because you think that you have your team. You've done all your work in the portal. You go through a full spring and you think you know what you got and what you need to work on, whatever. And then all of a sudden, a guy gets poached or a guy leaves, and then you got to address depth. And we've seen it with Arkansas in the past. I guess they didn't get hit too hard this year though in the spring window, but it is kind of a mess. And I never really understood why they had 2 separate windows there. I guess it could be for the flip side of the guys who chose to stick it out, didn't enter the portal, got recruited over, realized that in the spring, and then maybe wanted to get a fresh start.
I was gonna say maybe should the only window be after spring. Now I know that's a little bit tough. You want guys to be able to transfer right away or whatever, but like just because of how many people end up leaving after, I mean, hell, there's multiple players on Arkansas's roster who transferred somewhere in the spring and then wound up transferring to Arkansas. And so it's like, I feel like there's a lot of times people get into spring ball and they clearly find out, hey, this isn't the right situation for me. But I also think there's going to be a lot of players and would be a lot of players who, if forced to stay and go through spring and then, hey, if you don't like it, transfer. I think there would be a lot of people who would maybe go through spring and say, oh, damn, I'm actually running with the 2s now. Maybe I actually might stick around a little bit. Maybe you'd get a little bit different, but there should definitely be one, whether it's in May or in January. I think it's tough that rosters can just change so much. But at the same time, Arkansas is a program that's needed that spring portal window.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a good pull, a good example there from Evan about the Jacoby Criswell situation being a good one for sure. Yeah, a guy who kind of felt like he was going to be the dude, after KJ got out of there, and then it was just pretty clear right away in the spring that you got beat out. And kudos to him for being open to some competition and everything. But once the writing was on the wall, it's like you also got to take care of you. So I get it. I get it for sure. okay, Andrew, I don't know what you think, man, but like, I don't feel great given the situation here about doing like best and worst of the weekend. And you know what I'm saying? Like, this is a tough one, folks. And I know people are scared and upset. And I think we're both very preoccupied with the situation that's going on, but it's impossible for us to do this and that at the same time. Is there anything else you want to get into? And then maybe we just wrap this thing up a little bit early today and make sure everybody's, focused on the right things here.
I guess I want to clarify our stance, I guess, if I can.
Sure.
Not that we really have a stance, because again, this happened while we were on the show. Like, Curtis and I did not wake up this morning and prepare, hey, what are we going to do on the show whenever huge news breaks? Like, we're just kind of going through it, and we're kind of figuring out how to do it. Hell, I haven't even texted Curtis like, hey, why are y'all not talking about this? Are you not watching the news? And we've said that a few times, that like, we're not in a position to talk about this. One, because we don't know what's going on. Y'all have been watching us. We've been live for an hour and 7 minutes. You've been watching us. Like, we have not been checking our phones. We have not been, watching news. Like, we have not been tapped in. So we don't have updated details to tell you. If you guys want to talk about it, like, we can talk about it, but we don't know what's going on. We could not educate you on that. And again, like, I'm not saying it's like not our job, but it's not our place to comment on something that we have no information on whatsoever.
Yeah. And I don't want to give out bad information, poor information, wrong information, or anything like that. So why don't we just wrap it for the day here with everything that's going on, and we'll try again tomorrow. But hey, I do hope that, again, everybody stay safe out there. Obviously we're going to get off of here and try to get a feel for exactly what's going on. It's a scary deal. It doesn't sound great. And hopefully we can get a hold of some people who we know are over there on campus and make sure that everything's okay over there. And I want to do that too. So I don't think I don't think sponsors and everything are going to be upset about that given the situation today. But any final thoughts before we wrap up and get out of here?
No final thoughts. Listen, this is a sports show. We are very excited for game week. We're excited to talk football. It sucks. Hell, we had a lot to talk about today. This situation sucks, but also I just hope that people can understand our perspective here of like why we're not able to really comment on this. And so I hope there's not people out there that like feel let down, where they're like, oh man, y'all, because there's been a lot of people that are like, why are y'all not talking about this? And I get that to an extent, but it's like you said, we really just need to like end this, call whoever we need to call, like make sure everyone's safe, find out more, and thoughts and prayers for everyone involved in the situation. Like, it's a complete nightmare scenario for everybody. And we don't even know and we have no information. So we're all kind of reacting. I would say we'll keep you updated, but we're not going to keep you updated on the situation.
Yeah.
At least I don't plan on it. So I hope everyone, obviously anybody who's on campus right now, I've even seen some people saying that they're watching Arkansas players going live. If you're on campus, stay safe, do what you got to do, follow protocols and all this. But yeah, I feel bad because I just don't know what to do in the situation.
Me too. Yeah. And I think it's best for us to figure out exactly what's going on and check on our people as well. So appreciate everybody for tuning in and everything today. It was what we thought was going to be a big and important show from a football standpoint. Sometimes other things are just a little bit bigger than that. So we're going to get out of here. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow. Appreciate everybody. For Andrew Ellis, it's been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas, and we will see you tomorrow.